Hello and welcome to Changemakers. In this program, we have interesting conversations with people who are making a difference, making a change, making an impact. Our guest today is Dr. Neha Sangwan, founder and CEO of Intuitive Intelligence, a team of 60 healthcare professionals, creator of the I5 experience, a global citizen, and an internal medicine doctor. Dr. Sangwan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gopi. Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. What is this I5 experience that you created?
Well, the I5 experience, some of it seems actually quite common sense, but really the I5 experience is about connecting different parts of you and of your life. So it's about connecting what you think to what you say, to how you feel, to what you eat, and I tag the foot and say to what you do and create in the world.
Interesting. And what would be like a real world example of how somebody would relate to this?
Well, it would be that your motivation or lack of is connected to your health, is connected to all the different aspects, what you're eating and your food choices. Yeah. They're all connected. And a practical example would be something like around 3 o'clock, you work in a high-tech, high-stress environment, right?
Sure, yeah.
So do you ever have an afternoon energy dip?
Every day.
2 or 3 o'clock, yeah. Right? So that's what you feel, okay? So I just said think, say, feel,
Sure.
eat, do. So you might feel an energy dip. Mm-hmm. So some people's strategy for that would be to then head and get a chocolate chip cookie and a coffee,
yeah.
Right? So now they're on a sugar buzz and a caffeine buzz. Yeah. That's at 2, 3 o'clock. At your 4:30 meeting is when your sugar levels are dropping and you're now feeling a little anxious and irritable. So that might be the time you say, snap at a coworker, yeah. Right? That's the say part of this. And let's say your day didn't go so well. Now you're driving home and you're thinking, wow, this was a pretty bad day. I think I'm gonna skip the gym. And that's the do piece. Yeah. So now you're heading into your evening, and what you say and how you feel and interact with your home life is impacted greatly. So it's about all these connections and how they influence us, and most people don't realize how connected they are.
Now, the interesting thing about what you're saying, Neha, is that if you ignore all of this, you go further and further downhill from a health perspective,
yep.
And then you fall sick. Now, you practice medicine, like traditional medicine, for 10 years or so.
That's true.
And probably what you were seeing were people at this very end of the slope.
Yes.
So somewhere along the way, you must have thought, why don't I go further upstream and start addressing this and educating these people? How did that shift in thinking take place?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there is a spectrum, right? So as you described it, if death and dying is over here, yeah. Right? And optimal wellness is over here, I think most people are about right here, right? And so they get sick, and I used to take care of them and bring them here. And now I say, why don't I just take them to a much higher level of wellness? So it's my patients, in fact, that would ask me this.
And is that what led you to create Intuitive Intelligence as a concept as a company?
It is. They would say to me, you know, thank you for helping me with my heart attack and my stroke, but where were you 10 years ago? Before I had this experience, how come there's no one like you out in the world teaching us this before it happens? You're only teaching it to us once we've had the heart attack or the pneumonia or the stroke. And so I decided I wanted to be that doctor.
Very interesting. Now, you changed your career, so to speak. You had led an interesting career path. You started off as an engineer in undergrad. Then you went to medical school, became a traditional internal medicine doctor.
Yep.
And at some point, as you started learning from your patients, it looked like you felt you needed to create a corporation, be an entrepreneur, and reach a different level of scale. And did you have this as a goal right from the beginning? Or, you know, at each stage you felt like this is the direction which I want to turn? Tell me a little bit about that.
So the first 2 stages, I would tell you, I'm a good Indian child.
Yes.
I did
we all are.
Engineering, doctor, you know, learning. So science was heavily emphasized
Sure.
in my upbringing and my education. And I enjoyed the thinking and logic of engineering. And when I became an engineer, I worked for Motorola for a year, and I realized I really missed people. And my true calling was in the connection with people. So medical school seemed like a great option to pursue that even further. And in medicine, I ended up going to Australia about 10 years ago. And I was just graduating from my residency, the pinnacle of all of these years of schooling.
Absolutely.
And I thought I had arrived. But there was a part of me that felt sad, or that this wasn't it. This wasn't the pinnacle of everything I had worked for. And so I had to reconcile that disconnect. And that was when I realized, oh, wow, it's actually about moving upstream, like you said. There's a way to teach health and medicine and engage with people and do it in another arena.
And as I understand it, you first started going back to your own peers, like within the healthcare sector.
Yes.
But you became a little bolder and then now are taking this message to corporations.
That's true.
What is that journey all about?
So while I was working as a hospitalist, so it's an internal medicine doctor in the hospital, I realized the best place to start was the doctors and nurses, because if you look around the hospital, we don't look so healthy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're a
Doctor
group,
heal thyself, as they call it.
yes, we're a group of people who by nature tend to be better at taking care of other people than we are at taking care of ourselves. The system in itself is, extended long hours and all sorts of things that don't lend itself to renewal of energy and taking care of yourself. So I thought, if I can do this with the doctors and nurses, there's nowhere else that will be harder than this.
What are some of the examples of what you've been doing in corporations to make a difference? Because I work in a corporation, I know they don't change that quickly, let alone listen to a doctor coming from outside and trying to teach them.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Gopi? Being a doctor has actually served me quite well. There's a level of intimacy that happens in a room with a physician where fears are displayed, right, pretty openly. I walk in and I say the things that are the scariest to me in no time, yes? What I've found is when I go into an organization, I can actually people give me that trust and credibility right up front. And I can pretty easily understand things like, it looks like I'm pushing back on getting this thing done or not getting along with this person. But what I really need to tell you is, I don't feel appreciated here. So they say things that you would never expect. And I almost think that trust between a doctor-patient has now moved and become a way that I interact with companies and corporations.
Okay.
So.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, you also, in order to take this message to hundreds of thousands of people, you started talking about it to large organizations?
I have. My dream is hundreds of thousands of people, certainly. Right now, I'd say we're probably at thousands or tens of thousands.
Sure.
Yes, I've gone to the American Heart Association, for example. I speak there for the Go Red for Women luncheon. I also go to companies like a graphic design company called Envision. I went there and talked to their people about how do you eat properly so that you sustain your energy over the day, but even more when you travel. It's so important. People give up their taking care of themselves when they're on the road, and so much of our life can be on the road.
And what is, like, if you were to distill that message down to 3 or 5 points when you went, say, to the American Heart Association, what are the main points you're trying to deliver to this group of people who already think of themselves as experts in self-care?
Yeah. So they're experts in self-care of others. So that means they can listen to physical symptoms, make a diagnosis, right, and create a treatment plan. That's very different than noticing themselves and noticing their physical sensations that are giving them the idea that they're stressed or that they need to take a break. They need to stop having this conversation because they're going to say something they're going to regret shortly. Teaching people how to find their own pause button. So like a DVD player has a pause button, so do I. Most people don't know how to find it or how to use it, right? And so I teach them things like that. Well, how do you take a pause at a time when you're feeling really reactive? So it's also in the communication, right? So asking for time.
Tell our viewers, how does the average person watching this show find their human pause button? Or maybe there are several.
Yes, there's many different ways.
Okay.
One of them I would tell you is we each have a unique physical response to different types of stress.
Interesting.
Right? So let's say I feel stressed when I see my boss, okay, walking down the hallway. I
Yes.
get performance anxiety,
Yeah.
right? For me, that would show up as throat constriction. For someone else, it'll show up as their stomach turning or sweating. The first thing people need to know is, what is your unique response that's giving you an internal signal telling you you're moving out of your comfort zone into the uncomfortable zone?
Yes.
When you know that, then there's techniques like even a simple, you're a yoga teacher,
I
right?
am. Yes, yeah. I know several
So
of them.
breathing,
Okay.
it sounds simple,
Yeah.
right? But your body physiologically really can help you. If you take some soft, deep breaths, you can actually trigger your own vagus nerve, which is your relaxation response inside your body. Some people, if they don't do that, we've moved into a society that sometimes believes a pill can do that for you, which it can sometimes. But I think what people don't know is, so can your body.
So you're saying there is a natural way of doing it, and for different people it's different. For some people it might be just singing or going for a walk
Yes.
or doing yoga.
Yoga, yeah.
Or it might be taking a nap. Whatever it is, be aware of it and use it as your main message there.
Yeah, and the other thing, to your point just now, is when you start learning techniques like breathing and ways to refocus yourself, you actually don't have to wait until the end of the day to de-stress yourself. You can actually do it during the meeting. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
If
So
it's breathing, if there's some imageries that we can help you create of a place where you feel really confident in yourself and you can remember those, there's ways in the moment where you can actually de-stress yourself, as opposed to some people, have a glass of wine after work, right? That's fine. It's just you have to wait until after work to make it happen.
Right.
So
It's
you
like
wanna-
one of my mentors on this path says that even if you're trying to meditate and quieten your mind for 1 hour,
Yes.
it's really 1 hour made up of 1 minute at a time, 60 times. And even that 1 minute is probably made up of 12 breaths. So start with 1 breath and the next one and the next one.
Yes.
So Neha, let me switch gears here at this point.
Sure.
We'll be talking about your professional life, but you got a very interesting background that I'm very curious about. You are truly a global citizen. You spent the early years of your life in Africa, and then you were born to Indian parents and you were raised in America. And you spent this time in Australia where you had this little epiphany, and you spent some time teaching in Saudi Arabia. How have all of these cultural influences created Dr. Neha Sangwan and influenced your work?
So that's a big question.
Yes, I don't want a big answer.
So the first thing that's coming to me is it's all connected. I really believe that my work in the world, because of that unique background across cultures and countries, and being the daughter of immigrants and a world traveler, travel is one of my passions. And now I think my third career, and I'm still in my 30s. So I think all of that has taught me on a global scale that it's all connected. We're talking about it's all connected here.
Absolutely.
And I also feel that my mission in the world is to help bridge people and ideas and health, whether it's to the corporate world or to the individual. These invisible bridges, I think, started with my upbringing. So I get the sense that we're all connected, and I want to keep that going and promote it.
And it's interesting how you have taken the message sometimes into companies, sometimes into different countries.
Yeah.
And we live here in Silicon Valley. I work for a high-tech firm myself, and I know the stress is enormous in the way companies move, and employees are expected to move very quickly quarter to quarter. And you
Yes.
took your message right into the lion's den by offering some of these seminars and workshops for many high-tech companies in this area.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you went and spoke at Invision once.
Yeah.
So tell me about going right into the battleground.
Yeah. Well, initially I was a little bit nervous. What I'm most familiar with is healthcare,
Yeah.
right? And I started working with corporate teams, and really it's just about a different scenario that creates the same stress.
Interesting. Okay.
The end response is the same, right? If you're working on high functioning, high stress medical teams who have the dynamics of hierarchy going on, who doesn't that apply to, right? So when I went to the corporate teams, what changed were the examples, what was relevant to the people sitting in the audience, what their exact situation was. But whether you have a white coat on and you're in scrubs or you're in a corporate setting with a suit on, we have the same human experience. So I found that my examples shifted, but the basic message was the same.
So you're saying that whether it is in a hospital operating theater or in a software company or in an entertainment theme park or in an airline or in a prison system, it is human beings who come to work and they have the same kind of response to whatever stimulus they are feeling, and your principles could go across all of these.
Exactly, exactly.
And is that what made you jump cultural borders? If I'm not mistaken, Neha, I think you told me that you went to Saudi Arabia and spoke at a conference and started working with a group of doctors and physicians there.
Yes, it's
true. So tell me about the Saudi experience. Culturally, was it a big shift?
So it was a huge shift.
Okay.
This was about 2 years ago. And Gopi, I'm actually going back again next month.
Wow. Okay.
But I was asked to speak for one of my mentors and colleagues, Dr. Jim Gordon, who was
very well-known name in this area.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. So he had just put out a book on, the 7 steps out of depression without medication, which is a pretty radical idea, right? Well, the Saudis loved that. They said, we really want to hear about this. So when he wasn't able to go, I stepped in. And it was a little bit scary, actually. As a woman, as being Indian, I really didn't know what to expect. So I heard all sorts of, everyone was giving me their opinions, right? My parents grew up where there was a lot of Hindu-Muslim conflict. So they had an experience from childhood. Some people
very apprehensive about that.
Say it again.
They must have been very apprehensive about that.
They were, and they, mostly they were worried about my safety because they wouldn't be there. And so I don't think it matters how old you get. Your parents will always worry, right? Then there were friends and colleagues who said, you'll find nothing in common there with them, and you won't feel respected. The truth was, it was one of the highlights of my life.
How so?
I actually covered my head with a scarf. No one asked me to do it. I did it because I had read about the culture and researched it. And what I found was, just because I put that scarf on my head when I came off the plane and interacted with people, they were so grateful. And what they said was, just that you showed us that gesture, that you came here and you respect the culture from which we come, tells us that it's not our job to change you. It's our job to respect the culture from which you come.
Amazing.
So that was really a big epiphany for me, probably one of the biggest ones in my life, that if I want to connect to someone else, that I start by respecting and honoring them.
And did you find that it established a certain connection that allowed you to communicate these principles to them more directly?
Yes, I think what it built was trust. It was trust that was the most important piece. And now when I go back in September, I'm doing a full series of lectures on the I-5 experience and communication and how it all connects.
So to this audience also, so here you are with a group of Saudi doctors and nurses, as well as people from the nearby countries. And you're again going back and talking to them about the same I-5 principles: think, eat,
say,
think, say, feel, eat, do.
You got it.
And the same principles that applied in a software company in Silicon Valley was equally applicable, and they received the message just as well?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
So what does that tell you about the human experience then?
It tells me that the way we we try to differentiate ourselves, right? And say that we're really different. I remember in engineering, it was all about, well, we can't learn anything from you unless you're an engineer.
Right.
And so it's a way that I think people form groups and feel safe. And I think this whole crisis that we're in, the economic crisis and everything that we're doing, is teaching me, and I think all of us, that in fact, we're all connected. And so, yeah, these are applicable no matter where I go, across genders, cultures, Silicon Valley, and Saudi Arabia.
All right. So with that last statement, actually, Neha, I think I should add one more title to you. So you're like engineer, doctor, entrepreneur, and now like spiritual guru or something. We're all connected. And take a nice deep breath and relax. So that brings me to this question. You're clearly very busy. You're traveling around the world, offering these workshops, thinking deep thoughts. You must be stressed to yourself. This can't be an easy life for you. So what does Dr. Neha Sangwan herself do to hit her pause button? And what is your relaxation response?
You know, Gopi, that's a really good question. So I'm going to start with I love sleep.
Okay.
So I make sure I get my 8 hours a night. 7 to 8 hours is really important for me. So I do that. Another thing that's really important is that I eat whole foods. So I eat things that when you read the label, you know what's in it. That keeps me feeling well. I really don't eat very much sugar, and so that keeps my sugar levels pretty even.
Okay.
I do yoga. You'd be happy to know.
Yes, delighted.
And, you know, I fall off the wagon. I want you to know I get stressed and I snap and I do all the things that other people do. What I would tell you is as I pay attention to my own self-care, the time that I fall off keeps getting shorter and shorter.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's that I'm exactly like everybody else. It's just that I have a lot of strategies in place.
Or I guess the other way around. When you fall off, you get back onto the wagon very quickly.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good.
You spend less and less time off the wagon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you did, I remember watching one of your shows on KGO Channel 7, Neha, some time back, when you talked of deep breathing and the relaxation response. I think it was a show on stress. In fact, let me ask the director to roll the video and show us that clip so that our audience can watch what you said in that particular show.
Sure. Your lungs actually take up a large portion of your chest. But normally as we go through our day and we're answering our cell phone and we're all talking, hey Cheryl, do you want to go out to dinner? I'm using about this much of my lungs.
Oh, right.
And so I'm actually not using the full capacity of my lungs. If I were to actually take a deep breath, not only is the best oxygen exchange going to occur at the bases, at the bottom of my lungs, but when I take a deep breath, I have something called a diaphragm, which is a little muscle here that looks like an umbrella shape, and it actually flattens and triggers your relaxation nerve called the vagus nerve. So when you do it 3 times, you actually physiologically have relaxed yourself.
And that was pretty interesting because years of doing yoga and deep breathing, etc., I didn't quite know that was physiologically that was what was going on. So if you were to leave behind like one nugget of wisdom that is immediately applicable to our viewers, based on this relaxation response that you were talking about, what would you ask our viewers to do?
So I would ask them to take, so when they notice that unique way that their body gives them a signal that they're stressed, remember when I was talking about the boss walking down the hallway?
Correct.
So when they notice that, so first of all is noticing that. The second is if they soften their belly and just allow themselves to take 3 deep breaths, they actually will notice a physical relaxation happening wherever they are. So I would ask them to do that.
So it's something as simple as take 3 deep breaths. It takes all of 20 seconds for most people. Whether you're driving a car, you're sitting in the office, you're getting stressed about, you're standing in grocery lines, 3 deep breaths, and immediately there's this physiological response.
Well, let's be honest, it doesn't take 20 seconds because you have to breathe.
Right.
You don't have a choice, right?
This is true.
So it's about being aware of it and actually stopping and taking a deep breath. So it actually doesn't even take any more time.
So as we come to the end of the show, I just want to ask you, where are you taking all of this? Where do you want to go next with this? And clearly you're a person who's not going to sit around letting things be and want to shake things up, whether it's in a hospital room or entire populations or in the nation of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So where do you see going forward with this work of yours?
So, Gopi, my dream is to have a team of healthcare professionals working in the corporate arena as well as internationally, bringing credibility and science and awareness to people's health and linking it to performance. So we're a society driven on faster, bigger, better, right?
And measure everything.
And we measure everything.
Yes.
So it's a perfect blend of health and performance with science as the basis underneath it. So I hope to grow and expand my team and my reach.
Fantastic. And is it true that I hear that you might be on Oprah possibly?
So that's a rumor.
Yes.
I did apply. I did an audition for Oprah's new OWN network to be a health and well-being host.
Fantastic.
So I'm hopeful. Fingers crossed.
Okay, and I hope you tell them that it all started here when you were on show one day.
I will be sure to tell them that.
Okay. This has been really interesting, and in fact, the message is very simple, and I like the elegant simplicity of this message. And why don't you just repeat once more before we wrap up the I-5 principle, because it's easy to remember and very memorable too.
Sure. It's that what you think is connected to what you say and how you feel, what you eat, and ultimately what you create and do in the world. So it's about all 5 of those pieces being linked, and when one is off balance, it means that there's trouble in other places as well, but usually one of them shows up predominantly. So pay attention, and if we start there, we'll be able to link them to all the rest.
And if you're getting stressed about all this, take 3 deep breaths.
Yes, exactly. It's a great place to start.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Neha, it's been a pleasure having you on this show. Our guest for today has been Dr. Neha Sangwan, founder and CEO of Intuitive Intelligence, and her message really is about self-care and health-care that we can manage for ourselves. In other words, take unconditional responsibility for your own self-care and health-care. Neha.
So be careful. Don't take full responsibility just of your health care. So I want them to still see their doctor.
Absolutely. Okay. Otherwise, we'll put them out of the business.
Yeah, we're not putting doctors out of business, but I do think that we should start with our own self-care. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yes.